Imagine opening your bank account expecting your usual government benefit payment, only to discover that the amount is different from what you expected. Maybe it is lower. Maybe the payment is delayed. Maybe your GIS amount has changed. Maybe your OAS payment is not exactly what you thought it would be. Or maybe the payment arrives normally, but you later discover that something in your personal information or tax situation was out of date. For many Canadian seniors, that kind of surprise can be stressful because CPP, OAS, and GIS are not just numbers on a statement. For some households, these payments help cover groceries, rent, utilities, medication, transportation, and other everyday expenses. And right now there is a very good reason to take a few minutes and check your information. The Government of Canada's official payment calendar shows that the next scheduled 2026 CPP and OAS payment date is August 27th, 2026. GIS is administered alongside OAS and follows the same payment schedule. So before that money arrives, there are 7 simple checks worth making. None of these checks requires you to panic. And none of them means your payment is automatically going to change. The point is simply to make sure the government has the right information, that you understand what you are receiving, and that you are not overlooking something that could affect your benefits. And stay with me, because the 7th check is one that can become especially important if your income has changed recently. If you enjoy straightforward information about CPP, OAS, GIS, and government benefits for Canadian seniors, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you do not miss future updates. Let's start with the first check. The first check sounds obvious, but it is one that many people skip. Before your next payment arrives, make sure you know exactly which benefit you are expecting and when it is scheduled to be paid. For CPP and OAS, the official 2026 calendar lists August 27th as the August payment date. The following scheduled dates are September 25th, October 28th, November 26th, and December 22nd. That gives you something important, a reference point. If you normally receive CPP and OAS together, you can compare your actual deposit against what you normally receive. But here is where you need to be careful. Your expected payment is not necessarily the same as the maximum payment advertised online. The Government of Canada publishes maximum benefit amounts, but your personal amount depends on your circumstances. For example, CPP retirement pension amounts can vary significantly depending on factors such as your contribution history and when you started receiving the pension. The official CPP information currently lists a maximum CPP retirement pension at age 65 of $1,507.65 per month for January 2026, while the average retirement pension for new beneficiaries age 65 was $877.01 per month for July to September 2026. Those numbers are not a promise that every senior receives those amounts. They are simply examples of why you should compare your own payment history rather than comparing your deposit to somebody else's. The same principle applies to OAS and GIS. For July to September 2026, the maximum OAS pension at age 65 is listed at $751.97 per month, while the maximum at age 75 and over is $827.17. Again, maximum does not mean guaranteed. Your personal payment can depend on your situation, eligibility, and other factors. So the first money check is simple. Look at your previous payment. Look at your expected upcoming payment. And if there is a difference, do not immediately assume that something has gone wrong. First, look for an official explanation in your account or correspondence. That brings us to the second check, because the amount sitting in your bank account does not always tell you the whole story. The second check is one of the most useful things you can do before your next benefit payment. Check your My Service Canada account, commonly called MSCA. Think of it as one of the places where you can review information connected with your federal benefits. For CPP and OAS recipients, MSCA provides access to benefit information and various self-service options. The Government of Canada also says that benefit tax slips can be accessed through MSCA, and the account can help you review information related to your benefits. Why is this important? Because many seniors only look at their bank account, they see the deposit, and move on. But if you are trying to understand why an amount changed, your bank account is usually not the best place to start. You want to look for official information explaining your benefit situation. And this becomes especially important if you recently moved, changed your banking information, experienced a change in marital status, or had a significant change in income. For OAS recipients, the government says MSCA can allow eligible users to update information such as their address, telephone number, direct deposit information, and marital relationship. There is also an important security lesson here. Do not give your banking password, MSCA password, or sensitive personal information to someone who randomly contacts you claiming they can check your benefits. You do not need to pay a stranger simply to tell you information that you can verify through official government channels. If someone says, your payment is about to be canceled unless you give me your information immediately, stop. Do not click the link. Do not provide your banking information. Do not give them your security codes. Instead, independently open the official Government of Canada website or your normal government account and check the information yourself. This one habit can protect both your benefits and your money. But there is another check that may matter even more for seniors receiving GIS. It has to do with your tax return. If you receive GIS, this is one of the most important checks in the entire video. The Guaranteed Income Supplement is income tested. That means your income matters, and your tax return matters because Service Canada uses information from your tax return when reviewing eligibility and calculating benefits. The Government of Canada explains that OAS and GIS eligibility is automatically confirmed after clients file their annual tax return. Service Canada reviews GIS eligibility every year in July, using the previous year's declared income. People who remain entitled to GIS are automatically renewed as long as an income tax return is submitted on time. That means filing your taxes is not just something you do because tax season comes around. For many low-income seniors, it can be directly connected to continuing access to income-tested benefits. Imagine a senior who receives OAS and GIS. They may think, I don't owe much tax, so filing isn't important. But that can be a dangerous assumption. The issue is not simply whether you owe income tax. The issue is whether the government has the information it needs to determine your benefit entitlement. Your tax return helps establish the income information used for that calculation. So if you have not filed the required return, or if there is some unresolved issue with your tax information, that is something worth addressing. And this is especially important because GIS amounts can depend on income and marital status. The government currently explains that GIS amounts depend on marital status and net income. So if you are receiving GIS, do not think of your annual tax return as completely separate from your monthly benefit. They are connected. There is another reason to check this before your next payment. Suppose your income changed significantly. Maybe you stopped working. Maybe you had less employment income than the year before. Maybe an income source ended, or perhaps your circumstances changed in another way. That could be relevant when your benefits are reviewed. The exact effect depends on your situation, so do not assume a particular change will automatically increase or decrease your GIS. Instead, make sure the government has accurate information and check your official benefit information. And there is a related mistake that many people make. They assume that because they filed taxes last year, everything must still be correct today. Not necessarily. Your tax return reflects a particular tax year. Your current circumstances may be different. That is why our fourth check is about changes that happened after your tax return. Now we get to one of the most important checks for seniors receiving income-tested benefits. Ask yourself one question. Has my income changed? This does not mean you need to calculate your entire tax return before every payment. It means you should be aware of significant changes in your financial situation. For example, perhaps you started working again, perhaps you sold an investment, perhaps you began receiving another pension, perhaps an income source increased, or perhaps the opposite happened and your income dropped substantially. These situations can matter differently depending on which benefit you receive. GIS is particularly sensitive to income because it is designed for low-income OAS recipients. The Government of Canada says GIS is reviewed annually and that the amount a recipient receives depends on marital status and net income. OAS also has another income-related issue that higher-income seniors need to understand. It is called the OAS recovery tax, sometimes referred to as the OAS clawback. For the July 2026 to June 2027 recovery tax period, the threshold is based on 2025 income. The Government of Canada lists the minimum income recovery threshold for the 2025 income year as $93,454. If your 2025 net world income exceeds that threshold, part or all of your OAS pension may have to be repaid through the recovery tax system. Now, do not misunderstand this. It does not mean every senior earning more than that amount automatically loses their entire OAS payment. The repayment is calculated based on how much income exceeds the applicable threshold, subject to the rules. For example, the government's information illustrates that if 2025 income were $100,000, the difference from the $93,454 threshold would be $6,546, and 15% of that difference would be $981.90. That is why some seniors may notice a change in their OAS payment beginning in July. In fact, the government explains that if a person has to repay part of their OAS, an appropriate amount can be deducted from future OAS payments through a recovery tax. So if your OAS payment looks different, do not automatically assume Service Canada made an error. Check whether there is a recovery tax deduction or another explanation. And if your income has fallen substantially after a high income year, there may be circumstances where you can request a reduction in OAS recovery tax withheld at source. The CRA provides a process for certain situations where current income is expected to be substantially lower. This is exactly why checking your income situation is so valuable. You may discover that the change is completely legitimate, or you may discover that you need to investigate further. Either way, you are better off knowing before the problem grows. And now we come to a check that can be surprisingly important for couples. If your relationship status has changed, do not assume the government will automatically know. This is particularly important for benefits that consider family income or marital status. The CRA says you must tell it about a change in marital status by the end of the following month after the change. This includes marriage, becoming common law, separation for more than 90 days because of a relationship breakdown, divorce, and becoming widowed. Why does this matter? Because a change in marital status can affect benefit calculations. For example, GIS calculations can depend on whether you are single, married, or living common law, and on the income of the relevant household situation. Imagine someone who is receiving benefits based on being part of a couple, then their spouse passes away. Their financial situation is obviously different. The government needs accurate information to determine what benefits the person may be entitled to. Or imagine the opposite. Someone begins living common law and continues receiving benefits based on their previous status without updating their information. That could create an incorrect payment calculation. The important thing is not to guess what the new amount will be. The important thing is to report the change properly. And remember that different government departments can have separate records. The CRA specifically says it will not share your marital status or other personal information, including direct deposit information, with other government departments. So updating one government account does not necessarily mean every other program has automatically been updated. For OAS, Service Canada specifically lists several life changes that recipients should report, including marriage, entering a common law union, divorce or separation, the death of a spouse or common law partner, and income changes. This is a good example of why seniors should not rely on assumptions. If something important changed in your life, check the appropriate government program. And there is one more practical check that can prevent a very frustrating problem, making sure your money actually goes to the right place. Think about how many things can change over the course of a year. You may move, your bank may change, you may close an old account, you may open a new account, your phone number may change, you may stop receiving paper mail at an old address. These changes may seem unrelated to your benefits, but they can become very important if government payment information is no longer current. The Government of Canada provides separate processes for updating personal information associated with CPP and OAS, and the available options can differ by program. For OAS, the government says that eligible recipients can update certain personal information through MSCA, including address and direct deposit information, after activating the relevant account features. CPP currently has different procedures for some changes, and the government says CPP recipients should use Service Canada assistance for certain personal information and direct deposit changes. The lesson is simple. Do not assume that because you changed your banking information with your bank, the government automatically knows. It does not work that way. And do not assume that because you updated your CRA information, every Service Canada program automatically has the same information. The government itself provides separate instructions for CRA-administered programs and Service Canada-administered programs. This is especially important if you receive multiple benefits. For example, a senior could receive CPP and OAS through Service Canada, while also receiving a CRA-administered benefit. Different programs can have different records and different update procedures. So before your next payment, check that your contact information and banking destination are still correct for the benefits you actually receive. And if you recently moved, do not wait until a payment goes missing before checking. Prevention is much easier than trying to fix a payment problem after the fact. There is also a practical timing issue. Government payment dates are scheduled dates, but the money may not necessarily appear in your account at exactly the same moment for everyone. The Government of Canada notes that payments are issued on the listed dates, but may take a few days to arrive, and it advises recipients to allow additional time before contacting the program. So if the payment date arrives and you do not immediately see the deposit, do not panic. Check the official payment date, check your bank, check your government account, then allow the appropriate processing time. But if the payment remains missing beyond the relevant period, contact the appropriate government department. That leads directly into our 7th check, and this one could uncover money or prevent problems that you never realized were connected to your benefits. The final check is broader. Do not look only at the payment you already receive. Look at your overall benefit situation. Many seniors focus entirely on CPP. Others focus on OAS. Others focus on GIS. But retirement income in Canada can involve several different programs, and eligibility depends on individual circumstances. For example, someone receiving OAS may also qualify for GIS if they meet the relevant low-income requirements. The Government of Canada also identifies other related programs such as the Allowance for the Survivor, and CPP. This does not mean you should assume you qualify for every program you see online. You should never make a financial decision based on a headline claiming that every senior gets a certain amount. Instead, ask a better question: is there a government benefit or credit that I should personally investigate, and use official sources to answer it. This is especially important after a major life change. Maybe you recently became widowed, maybe your income dropped, maybe you turned a new age that affects eligibility for another program. Maybe you moved, maybe your household income changed, maybe you started or stopped working. Those events can change what programs are relevant to you. And remember, the Government of Canada says you need to file your taxes every year to receive or continue receiving certain benefits and credits administered through the tax system. There is another reason to perform this check. Look for official notices. Do not ignore letters simply because you assume they are advertisements or routine government mail. A notice may explain a change in your benefit. It may provide information about an adjustment. It may tell you about taxes. It may ask for information. Or it may simply confirm something you need to know. If you receive something that you do not understand, do not throw it away. Read it carefully. If necessary, compare the information with your official government account or contact the appropriate department. And be particularly cautious with anyone who contacts you unexpectedly and claims they can get you extra government money if you pay them first. The Government of Canada itself warns people to rely on official federal and provincial or territorial websites for accurate benefit information and to be alert to benefit scams. You should never need to pay someone just because they claim they can tell you whether you qualify for a government program. You can get official program information directly from the government. And that brings us to a very practical question. What should you actually do today? If you are watching this and thinking, okay, but where do I begin? Keep it simple. First, find your next scheduled payment date. If you receive CPP, OAS, or GIS, the next scheduled payment in August 2026 is August 27th. Second, check your government account information. Review what you can see through My Service Canada account, and if you receive CRA-administered benefits, check your CRA account as well. Third, make sure your tax filing situation is up to date. If you receive GIS or other income-tested benefits, this is particularly important. Fourth, think about whether your income has changed. Do not try to predict the exact benefit effect yourself if you are unsure. Simply identify the change and investigate how it applies to your program. Fifth, check your marital or family status. If you got married, became common law, separated, divorced, or became widowed, make sure the appropriate government records have been updated. Sixth, verify your address and banking information. If anything changed, use the official government process for the specific benefit involved. And seventh, look beyond the payment itself. Check whether there are notices, eligibility questions, or other benefits that you should investigate. This does not need to become a 3-hour project. For many people, the first review can take only a few minutes. The important part is that you actually do it. And there is one more thing I want you to remember. A difference in your payment is not automatically an error. A lower payment does not automatically mean your benefits have been canceled. A delayed deposit does not automatically mean something is wrong. And an online headline saying government payment increased does not automatically mean your personal payment will increase. Government benefits are based on individual circumstances and program rules. Your job is not to guess. Your job is to verify. That is a much safer approach. Before we finish, let's talk about some common mistakes. The first is relying on social media posts instead of official government information. A video, Facebook post, or online comment can give you a useful idea of what to investigate, but it should not be treated as proof that you personally qualify. The second mistake is comparing your payment with another senior's payment. Your neighbor might receive a different CPP amount. Your relative might receive a different GIS amount. Someone online might show a much higher OAS payment. That does not mean your payment is wrong. Different circumstances produce different benefit amounts. The third mistake is assuming that a maximum benefit amount is the normal benefit amount. It is not. Maximum figures are useful for understanding the program, but they are not a guarantee of what every recipient receives. The fourth mistake is ignoring your tax return because you do not expect to owe tax. For income-tested benefits, filing can be important even when your tax bill is small or zero. The fifth mistake is forgetting that life changes can affect benefits. Marriage, separation, widowhood, changes in income, and moving can all be reasons to review your information. The sixth mistake is changing your bank account and forgetting to update the government. This can create unnecessary payment problems. And the seventh mistake is reacting to a payment change before finding out why it changed. If your deposit is different, slow down, look for the official explanation, check your account. Check your notices, check the relevant government website, then contact the appropriate department if necessary. That approach is much better than assuming the worst. There is a bigger lesson behind these 7 checks. Government benefits are not completely static. The amounts, calculations, income information, and eligibility reviews can change over time. For example, OAS rates are reviewed quarterly using changes in the Consumer Price Index. For July to September 2026, OAS benefits increased by 1.2% compared with the previous quarter, and the government says the increase represented a 2.3% increase from July 2025 to July 2026. That is a good example of why seniors should not rely on an old payment amount forever. Your benefit information can change as the program rules and indexed amounts change. At the same time, the amount you personally receive can be affected by factors specific to you. That is why a good habit is to review your benefit information periodically instead of only looking at your bank account when money arrives. And if you are a GIS recipient, remember that annual review is particularly important because Service Canada reviews GIS eligibility every July using previous year income information. So this is not about being worried every month. It is about becoming organized. One quick review before a major payment can help you catch information that needs attention. And over a full retirement, those small habits can make a meaningful difference in how confidently you manage your income. So let's bring everything together. Before your next CPP, OAS, or GIS payment, make 7 money checks. Check your payment date and understand what amount you are expecting. Check your My Service Canada account and review official information about your benefits. Check that your tax filing situation is up to date, especially if you receive GIS or another income-tested benefit. Check whether your income has changed in a way that could affect your benefits. Check your marital or family status, and make sure important life changes have been reported. Check your banking and contact information so government payments and notices can reach you properly. And finally, check whether there are notices, eligibility questions, or other government benefits that you should investigate. You do not need to memorize every rule in the Canadian retirement system. You do not need to understand every government form. And you certainly should not rely on rumors or dramatic headlines to manage your retirement income. You simply need to build the habit of checking your information and verifying important changes through official sources. For August 2026, the next scheduled CPP and OAS payment date is August 27th. That does not mean everyone's payment will be identical, and it does not mean everyone's circumstances are the same, but it does give you a useful deadline for doing your own quick review. If everything looks correct, great. You can move on with confidence. If something does not look right, you have found it early enough to investigate. And that is really the goal of these 7 checks. Not fear, not panic, not chasing every new headline, just being informed enough to recognize when something deserves your attention. If this video helped you understand what to check before your next government benefit payment, consider subscribing to the channel and turning on notifications. We cover CPP, OAS, GIS, retirement benefits, and important information for Canadian seniors in straightforward language. And remember, when it comes to your retirement income, never assume. Check, verify, and use official Government of Canada information when making decisions about your benefits. Thanks for watching, and stay informed.